nonetheless, it fits in with what we talk about here. We talk about education a lot, school choice, vouchers, privatization, getting it out of the hands of the teachers' unions, and there is such a great success story right here in New York City, and we are joined by a man who is such a big part of that wonderful success story. And we welcome in Dr. Tim McNiff, Superintendent of Schools for the Archdiocese of New York. And great to see you, sir.
I'm delighted to be with you.
Thanks for being here.
This is good.
I mean, I could throw out the first statistic, which is just amazing: 97% graduation rate.
Our seniors, 97% of them graduate. And I think what makes that even more pronounced, Steve, is that in our city schools, now we have some schools up in the counties, but in the city, 64% of our children live at or below the poverty line. So when you take that statistic and juxtapose it to 97% of them are moving on to college, it's a wonderful story to tell.
It is an amazing story, and it flies in the face of the education system in big cities and really around the country as a whole. Talk about some of the problems that the Archdiocese of New York is having. I mean, I know there have been schools that have had to close, lack of financial support, et cetera. What those problems are and how you believe they could be remedied by government, in a sense.
Well, and it's a very fair question. And truth be told, Steve, nationally, Catholic schools are still challenged in closing schools. And may I say, it really is not because of what's happening in the classroom. It's the business model we have. Yeah. It's an artificial tuition that we set low, and it doesn't meet our cost. And trying to fill that delta is what has been the demise of many schools, and we felt it here in the Archdiocese. I will say to you, as your leadoff was, though, you know, our test scores are still strong. The graduation rate, we really are pleased with what's happening. It is that delta. So what we have done is exciting, and it's very encouraging. What we first had to do was close 60 of our schools. There were 276 schools in the system. Yeah. That was heart-wrenching.
Sure.
But what it gave us the ability to do is to reduce the deficits that we were presently incurring to something that was manageable. Again, when your business model is not bringing in the income that you need, you'll always be in deficits.
Sure, you need to make changes.
But we have now a manageable deficit.
That's great.
Just as significantly, though, Steve, and this is what is exciting and I think needs to be replicated in other parts of the country, we changed the governance model. We've came to the conclusion parishes cannot sustain these schools by themselves, so we created regional boards, and we invited a lot more people to be participatory as stakeholders. And by that I mean actual board members that are incorporated.
Right.
When we did that, we brought in skill sets we were lacking in the past. Not only financial, but building facilities, marketing, public relations, fundraising, and whatnot.
That is great. That's using ingenuity and creativity and helping to solve your problem.
Absolutely. It's still the system still requires more money.
Yes. Well.
And we're attacking that in a very aggressive way too. The first thing, and rightfully so, we looked internally. How can we start to monetize some of the resources we have within the church? And by that I mean looking to rent buildings that were on the market, and we can bring that in to help for scholarships. I love the prelude that you just had, though. We are also now aggressively, and Steve, can I say unapologetically, starting to say public funding needs to come in to support these schools. When you think that 42% of our city schools educate non-Catholics, we're delighted with that opportunity.
And that was going to be my next point for you to bring out, kind of like saving it for a big drum roll.
Sorry.
No. That is a fact, and that is such an important thing. And you know, the public. First of all, we see a government in this city who, and you know, beyond this city, and it's not just this administration, that will attack charter schools because, well, if every single kid can't have the best, then why should anybody have the best? And that logic is just I can't get my mind around that. And of course, this notion of separation of church and state that is carried to the extreme, which is not even verbatim in the Constitution. Why shouldn't parents have vouchers? Why shouldn't kids have choice and parents have choice? Whether they take that voucher, where we spend so much per pupil now in this city and in other cities around the country, and say, I want to go send my kid to a Catholic school, whether or not I'm Catholic, or I want to send them to a yeshiva, or I want to send them to a charter school, I want to send them to this school. Why should it not be the parents and the child's choice?
And the courts have already weighed in on that in so many places around the country. But Steve, if I can just, before we even go into that, what is a fundamental need in education is choice. You have to give parents choice because no one school system, even the Catholic school
Fits
system,
all, no.
can fit all.
Yeah.
That's why charter schools are an important part of the conversation. And it's significant for me to say that because charter schools are a very big competitor of ours. They've replicated our model and they're giving it away free,
Yeah,
if you will.
yeah, yeah.
But you need charter schools because you need choice. And for the Catholic school system to remain, to be a part of that choice conversation, we're really going to have some public support on that. And when you think of the billions, Steve, the billions of tax-saving dollars that we give back to communities because of our presence, to me, this is an easy proposition to make.
It should be a very easy proposition, but unfortunately what you have to overcome, as I've described, is this notion that we don't want our tax dollars going to a religious anything. You know what I'm saying? And that's what you run up against, primarily, correct?
It is. But I changed that sentence. It's not going to a religious something. It's going to parents who are determined where's the best
well, I
place
agree
to
with you.
educate their
Yeah,
child.
but you know what the argument
I
is
absolutely
ultimately
do,
on the
yeah.
other side. How do you get to where making the argument, pushing the argument, showing the results, and educating the public that that not that there would be anything wrong if it were 100% Catholics in Catholic schools, but it's not.
Sure.
I mean, those are all talking points, and I mean that in a positive way. But is that enough? And what more can you do to get to where you need to be?
So the voucher conversation is still a very controversial issue to talk about in many parts of the country and also here in New York. There are alternatives. And in 17 states and in New York, we're still pushing for this, is corporate tax credits, where corporations, if they have a state tax liability, can redirect that money to an organization who distributes scholarships. It's another way but a significant way that can help us. So we're very optimistic Governor Cuomo, before the legislators dismiss in June, is going to make this decision and have a corporate tax credit piece of legislation this year. And if not, we're going to continue that conversation.
Yeah, no, no doubt about that. And of course, hopefully he will introduce it and have that piece of legislation. But then you got to get the Democratic, the Democrats in the legislature to pass it.
But if you think about the grassroots work that we've done in New York, in the Assembly, it passed but 4 votes. In the Senate, passed but all 4 votes. In the Assembly, 80 some odd Democrats
said yes
to this thing.
That's
18
great.
unions said yes to this, in addition to a plethora of other types of stakeholders. So we really do have the support to position the governor to say yes to this.
Well, it's good, and it's good to know that that the Archdiocese here in New York it's thriving. It's being repaired, because when all those schools had to close, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for me as a Jewish person who just put such value in that kind of an education to see it happen. But after talking to you and doing the research prior to your interview, to know that it's headed back in the right direction and is on the road to tremendous recovery is a great thing.
And Steve, here's the good news. We are out of the school closure business.
Yep.
And next year we are predicting with confidence we will have an increase in overall enrollment in the first time in 2 decades.
That is wonderful.
So in New York, we're fixing the challenges that we're having, but we need still support.
Yeah, no, kudos to you. Let me ask you if you want to weigh in on this Common Core curriculum.
Sure.
There's a controversy in Milwaukee where the parents are unhappy with the Archdiocese there for supporting the Common Core. You know, you talk about one size not fitting all. I'm a little bit afraid. My son's 14 now, so he's not going to be much affected by that. He's already learned math and all that stuff. What's your opinion on the Common Core method?
And I don't waver on this. I am an advocate for Common Core.
Okay, why?
Now, I'm critical of its implementation. It's way too fast. We didn't give the teachers enough time to make the transition. I think the communication of Common Core has seriously had its flaws. But I agree with what the governor said several years ago, and 45 states have now adopted this. They have lamented on 3 things we've been talking about for a long time, Steve. Globally, we're falling behind, and international assessments will substantiate that. Colleges are saying more and more kids need remedial work when they come from the high schools.
Which is horrific, yeah.
And it's up to 40% in many areas. And we're still hearing employers complain about the skill set of young people coming into the workplace. And we've been talking about that for decades. So the governor said we need to set some standards that are benchmarked globally, and they're much more rigorous, and we need to have a better way to assess, are we attaining?
And you feel this will go a long way towards doing that?
Absolutely. And just if I can
We got about 30 seconds.
30, then I won't go any further.
Okay, no.
But it's the right way to go,
Yeah.
and we control the curriculum and how we want our kids to get to the standards. If we couldn't do that, I'd be a problem with it. But this is the right move.
Great. All right. Tim McNiff, Superintendent of Schools for the Archdiocese of New York. Great news. Great to talk to you. I love an uplifting conversation. And anything we could do, let us know.
Anytime.
All
Thank
right,
you so much.
Tim,
Yeah,
Dr.
appreciate
Tim,
it.
thank you very much. All right, folks, we're coming back with Gimme 5 right here on the Steve Malzberg Show.